In 1972, a man climbed into a cave in Texas and stayed there for 6 months. No clock, no sunlight, no way to know if it was day or night up above. When they finally pulled him out, he thought it was still early August. It was September. His own mind had lost nearly 5 weeks. This is what happens to the human brain when you take away time, and it is stranger than you would ever guess. To understand why anyone would do this to themselves, you have to know what kind of person he was. He was an explorer first, the sort of man who looked at a black hole in the ground and felt pulled to climb into it rather than away. His name was Michel Siffre. He was a French scientist, and he had done this once before, 10 years earlier, in a freezing cave in the Alps. That first time, in 1962, he only meant to study the ice. He was a geologist, 23 years old, planning to spend a couple of weeks looking at an underground glacier, but a strange idea took hold of him. He decided to leave his watch behind and live in total darkness, with no clock and no calendar, just to see what would happen to him. He stayed for 2 months, alone, at the bottom of a freezing pit 100 meters underground. It was brutal down there. The cave was wet and close to freezing. His feet were always cold, and the darkness was total. Most people would have lasted days. He planned to stay for weeks. His only link to the world was a phone line to a team on the surface, but they were not allowed to tell him anything. He would call them when he woke, when he ate, and when he went to sleep, and they simply recorded it. What he did not know was that the team above was watching his sleep drift in real time. On their charts, his waking and sleeping slowly slid later and later each day, like a clock losing its grip. He was living it blind. They were watching it happen on paper, and almost immediately, something went wrong with his sense of time. Cut off from the sun, he started guessing how much time was passing. When he felt 2 minutes had gone by, he would count it out and call up to his team, but his 2 minutes were actually closer to 5. A part of his mind had quietly slowed to half speed, and he could not feel it happening. He kept a diary down there in the dark. He thought he was falling behind on it by a day or so. He was falling behind by weeks. When they came to bring him up after 63 days, he was stunned. He was convinced only 25 days had passed. He had lost over a month of his life inside his own head. At the time, it was the longest anyone had ever lived underground alone. Newspapers called him mad. Scientists called him reckless. But buried in his messy diary and his strange sleep records was something nobody could ignore. Proof that the mind keeps time in a way we had never measured before. That should have been a one-time curiosity. Instead, it became the question that ran his entire life. He was not the only one chasing this. Around the same time, a researcher in Germany ran more than 100 isolation experiments in an underground bunker, but those lasted only weeks. Nobody had gone as deep, or as long, or used their own body the way Siffre did, because Siffre had stumbled onto something real. The human body has its own clock, buried deep in the brain, ticking away without you ever noticing it. It is called the circadian rhythm. Every day, sunlight resets it and keeps it locked to 24 hours. But take away the sun, take away every clock, and that internal clock keeps running on its own. The question nobody had really answered was simple. What time does the body keep when it is left completely alone? To find out, Siffre did something far more extreme. In 1972, he went back underground, this time for 6 months. The place was called Midnight Cave, near Del Rio, Texas, a chamber 440 feet from the entrance, with a tent, a bed, frozen food, and 800 gallons of water. And again, the most important thing was what the cave did not have. No clock, no calendar, no sunlight, nothing to tell him when he was. NASA was paying attention this time, because astronauts had the same problem. Cut off from a normal day and night, the human body does strange things, and they needed to understand it. So Siffre lay down in the dark and let his body decide everything. He slept when he felt tired. He woke when he felt rested. He ate when he felt hungry. Every time he woke, he ran tests on himself. He took his own pulse. He counted slowly from 1 to 120, trying to measure out exactly 2 minutes by feel alone. He pedaled an exercise bike and ran through the same checks over and over, alone in the dark, and slowly his body threw away the 24-hour day completely. It built a new one. He would stay awake for around 36 hours straight, then sleep for about 12, a 48-hour day with no sun and no clock anywhere in sight. And here is the eerie part. He could not feel it. To him, these felt like completely normal days. Some nights he slept 2 hours. Some nights he slept 18, and he could not tell the difference between them. 2 hours or 18 hours, they felt exactly the same to him. His mind had lost its grip on time so completely that the length of a day meant nothing anymore. But the deeper he went into the experiment, the more it started to cost him. The isolation began to break him down. He started forgetting words in the middle of sentences. Simple facts slipped away from him. His memory stopped working properly. With no days to separate one event from the next, everything blurred into a single endless now. His moods swung hard. 1 hour he would feel fine. The next he would sink into despair, alone in the dark with nothing but the sound of his own voice. At one point, a small mouse appeared in the cave. He became obsessed with it. He decided it would be his only companion, and he tried for days to catch it, just to have something alive near him. When he finally trapped it under a dish, he was overjoyed. Then he realized he had hurt it, and he broke down completely. That mouse was the only friend he had down there. He later described the whole experience as a slow slide towards something like madness. After months of this, he could barely think straight. His handwriting in the diary had become a scrawl. He would sit for what felt like minutes that were really hours, staring at nothing, his mind drifting in a fog with no edges. It got physically dangerous, too. Near the end, his heart began skipping and racing in the cold and the isolation, and the team watching his data grew genuinely worried. He begged to come out early. They kept him down there to finish the work, and there was a price he paid above ground as well. The Texas experiment left him around $100,000 in debt, and it would be almost 30 years before he could afford to go back under again. And yet the science that came out of it was extraordinary. He had proved that the human body keeps its own time, independent of the sun. That deep in the brain there is a clock that does not need daylight to keep ticking, even if it drifts. NASA used his findings for astronauts. Militaries used them for submarine crews living months without sunlight. He had accidentally helped found an entire field of science, the study of biological rhythms. He kept going back, too. He celebrated the year 2000 alone in a cave, 3,000 feet underground. He was 3 days late welcoming the new millennium, and he missed his own birthday. And his discovery did not stay in the past. In 2023, a Spanish athlete named Beatriz Flamini came out of a cave after 500 days completely alone, deeper and longer than Siffre ever went. She had gone in before the war in Ukraine started. She came out into a world that had moved on without her, and she said the same thing Siffre had said 60 years earlier. She lost track of the days after about the first 2 months. After that, time simply stopped meaning anything. Years later, when people asked him what he had learned, his answer was simple and a little haunting. He said he still did not really know what time is, that it is the great problem of being human, and that down in the cave, he had felt it slip through his fingers without ever being able to hold it. So think about what this really shows. The days you live by, the weeks, the hours, the feeling that time is passing at a steady speed. None of that comes from the world outside. It comes from the sun resetting a clock inside your head, over and over, every single morning. Take the sun away, and that clock keeps ticking for a while. Then it stretches, then it warps, then it lets go. Michel Siffre spent years of his life in the dark, proving one unsettling thing. Your sense of time is not solid. It is something your brain builds for you, moment by moment. And in the right kind of darkness, it will quietly come apart, and you will not even feel it happening.